Hello, welcome. Thank you for joining us on this edition of News 2. I'm Sandra Gumansing. In our top story, testimonials from business owners and private citizens were heard at the Earl B. Otley Legislative Hall in St. Thomas yesterday, as we reported, and the Committee of Finance was pressed with the difficult decision to be made in regards to the sin tax bill that will increase taxes on many tourism-related businesses. News 2's Stephanie Brown reports.
In the State of the Territory speech, Virgin Islands Governor Kenneth E. MAPP referred to a 19th century novel which depicts the binds working-class laborers were subjected to by upper-class privileged citizens.
But you may be asking, why is he so haunted by Dickens and his tale of two cities? Well, on the one hand, our economy is stronger than ever and growing. But on the other hand, we need to address the cash flow issues in the public sector.
The governor exclaimed in his State of the Territory speech that the Virgin Islands was experiencing financial challenges and that real action must be taken. As such, the governor and his financial team submitted a proposed Revenue Enhancement and Economic Recovery Act, which proposed increases on cigarettes, carbonated beverages, wines, beers, as well as timeshares. And recommendation and alternatives to the sin tax bill were voiced by business owners that would be hugely affected by the increases, and tempers flared.
Did I listen to your testimony?
Right, but you can't
excuse me. This is not Sugar Bay. Mr. Segrist, I could ask you, because we got it out of the way. If you decide today that you wanted to increase the prices at Sugar Bay, is there anything that the government can do about that?
No.
Thank you very much, sir. So it's supposed to be one-way traffic.
Other senators weighed in on alternatives to the sin tax bill as well.
It doesn't take a genius to see we're surrounded by water. Let's capitalize on that.
I'm extremely happy to see all these individuals coming forward, the private sector coming forward, and other individuals coming forward to testify for and against this bill. But the biggest elephant in the room is the cost of WAPA.
Sherry Lavert, owner of Rowdy Joe's North Shore Eatery, weighed in on her thoughts on the sin tax.
The extra taxes on alcohol and soft drinks and cigarettes, all those things I sell at my business, I would definitely have to pass those costs on to my clients, my customers, which of course I don't want to do. But I don't see how my business can absorb those extra taxes, that extra expense, as well as the 20% increase in WAPA.
The Committee of Finance passed the sin tax bill through favorably last evening with 5 yeses and 2 noes. Senator Terrence Nelson, a member of the 32nd Legislature, spoke further.
I don't support the sin tax increases. My issue with our government is not, I will not be on the side of individuals who say that the government does not generate enough revenue. Even if we were generating $2 billion a year, if we were wasting it off and didn't have prioritization, it would still be insufficient.
Stephanie Brown, News 2.
Senator Terrence Nelson also stated that he still maintains that his cannabis legislation will provide the economic relief that the territory needs, and if this legislation should pass, the territory would generate monies within 4 to 5 months. Senate President Myron Jackson spoke with members of the business community Wednesday morning as several protested outside the legislature against bill number 32-005. He said, "I was very encouraged by the protest. It shows the best of the Virgin Islands when citizens can voice their hopes and aspirations." Jackson said he covered the sidewalk from one end of the street to the next, listening to the concerns voiced. Jackson said the 32nd Legislature is currently considering several revenue enhancement and cost-cutting measures in addition to the sin tax before the body. Meanwhile, Governor Kenneth MAPP, strongly denounced the use of lynching imagery by those protesting against proposed sin taxes. He said some of what we witnessed on Wednesday reflects a dark place in our history that should not be revisited. Here's more.
I am personally offended as an African American and a person of African descent to see that in the U.S. Virgin Islands we could have a person purchase a doll that represents African people, have someone braid a hangman's noose, put it around this doll of African descent, and put it up on a stick and walk in a protest in a community such as the Virgin Islands to make a point. That is the most offensive demonstration of bigotry that I have witnessed in the U.S. Virgin Islands, and I want to denounce it. I further am saddened that a member of the legislature, Senator Positive T. Nelson, could stand on the floor or sit on the floor of the legislature, who represents the diversity of the people of the U.S. Virgin Islands, and try to make an excuse for this just offensive behavior by this protester. While the Chamber of Commerce denounced the act, it sort of gave a reason why the person was so angered, as opposed to moving the person out of the protest or requiring or forcing them or taking from them this effigy of a black person being lynched. We have no room in our society for this bigotry and racism. Recently, we had someone spray paint on the property of an East Indian business person that they must return to India where they came from. We do not tolerate nor condone these types of bigotry and behaviors in the Virgin Islands. And I would hope that Senator Nelson's comment that his minority understands what the protester was trying to convey, and that we should understand the representation that the protester used yesterday is simply wrong, and that he speaks only for himself.
A Virgin Islands grand jury on January 12th returned a 6-count indictment against Celeste Bermudez, 41, of Massachusetts, charging her with theft of federal program funds, money laundering, and making and subscribing a false income tax return. According to the indictment, Bermudez was the finance director of the Virgin Islands Community AIDS Resource and Education, Inc., VICARE, a nonprofit organization dedicated in 2011. The U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development approved approximately $1.3 million in grant funds to VICARE during the period July 1st, 2011 through June 30th, 2014. The Department of Health and Human Services Centers for Disease Control and Prevention awarded VICARE approximately $627,000 in grant funds. Bermudez is charged with embezzling approximately $293,000 during the period January 2012 through December 2013. If convicted, Bermudez faces maximum sentences of 10 years in prison and $250,000 fine. A federal grand jury has returned an indictment today charging Tamala Foy, 23, of St. Thomas, with 4 counts of possessing with intent to distribute crack cocaine within 1,000 feet of a school. According to the indictment, in November and December of 2016, the defendant sold and attempted to sell quantities of crack cocaine in the area of Red Hook within 1,000 feet of the Ivana Yudorican High School. If convicted, Foy faces a maximum sentence of not more than 40 years in prison and a fine of up to $2 million and at least 6 years of supervised release. On February 15th, Carlos Norman was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. Here's more from VIPD. Well, Carlos Norman, who was serving a sentence in a North Carolina Federal Correctional Institute on unrelated charges, was extradited back to St. Thomas based on an outstanding warrant issued by the Superior Court of the VI. The warrant was issued by the Superior Court for Carlos Norman and other individuals for the shooting and killing of 22-year-old Shakoy Benjamin on October 19, 2014, just outside of the former Blitz nightclub. Carlos Norman waived extradition and will be detained pending his advice of rights hearing for charges of first-degree murder, unlawful possession of a firearm, reckless endangerment, first-degree assault, and aiding and abetting. 2 radio hosts were shot dead on Tuesday inside the radio station in San Pedro de Macorís, Dominican Republic. The victims were Luis Manuel Medina, who was live via Facebook, live when the first shots were heard, and Leonidas Martinez, who also worked as the director of the station. According to the police, 12 people have been arrested in connection with the murders. President Trump said today, Thursday, he is not giving up on his plan to restrict travel to the United States. The president announced he will take steps next week designed to keep the country safe.
Next week, that will comprehensively protect our country. So we'll be going along the one path and hopefully winning that. At the same time, we will be issuing a new and very comprehensive order to protect our people.
Keeping our eye on the economy, free meals are coming back to Delta flights. Starting March 1st, the airline will be offering complimentary meals to passengers on transcontinental flights between New York's JFK, Los Angeles, and San Francisco. Delta will also be adding free meals to other longer domestic routes too. The meal offerings vary by time of day. Morning flyers could be offered a honey maple breakfast sandwich or breakfast medley, while afternoon travelers could dine on a mesquite smoked turkey sandwich or whole grain veggie wrap. Fruit and cheese plates are also on the menu. Let's take a look at the New York Stock Exchange. At the Stock Market Watch, we can see the Dow up 107, NASDAQ and S&P down. Coming up on News 2, it's cleanup time in Nada neighborhood. Details on that. Plus, in our Black History Moment, she was a civil rights activist who refused to surrender her bus seat to a white passenger. We have some updated news on Rosa Parks. That's coming up. Welcome back. Turning to Caribbean news, in Nevis, Joyceling Library Primary School held the official opening of its cafeteria. And according to officials, this opening completes the school meals program of the public primary schools on island. Here's more.
The Joyceling Library Primary School held the official opening of the cafeteria yesterday, Tuesday, 14th February, at the school. Coordinator for the school meals program, Earlene Maynard, stated that this opening completes the school meals program in all the public primary schools on the island. Principal Education Officer Palsy Wilkin was also present at the official opening ceremony. She commended the teachers and parents for their assistance in making the school meals program a success.
I want to say a special commendation to the principal and staff of the Joyceling Library Primary School. It is the first school where I have seen full supervision of all students in the cafeteria. Ms. Hendrickson, to you and staff, thank you so much for all that you have been doing here in the cafeteria.
The cutting of the ribbon was done by Mrs. Vernie Amory. The ceremony heard remarks from Premier and Area Representative, the Honorable Vance Amory, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Finance, Colin Dorr, Assistant Supervisor of the Joyceling Library Primary School's cafeteria, Marian Lescott, and the Principal of the school, Barbara Hendrickson. The students received their first meal in the cafeteria when it opened on October 3rd, 2016.
Turn our attention back at home. The Department of Human Services Head Start program will show you how Budgeting for Everyday Living workshop will get you closer to owning your own home. This 2-hour workshop will be held at the Department of Human Services Head Start and Sugar Estate Complex located on the 1st Avenue. The session will start at 9 a.m. on Monday, March 6th, and the focus will be on how to maximize your money, develop a budget, saving strategies, and how to improve your credit score. DHS Head Start program allied with the Virgin Islands Housing Authority and the Virgin Islands Department of Health to bring this together. The Office of the Governor, in conjunction with the St. Thomas Water Island Administrator, Merwin Potter, they organized a major cleanup in the Nada community that began earlier this week. The administrator's office met with Nada residents last week, Wednesday, in order to address wide-ranging concerns and to outline plans for the cleanup. Office of the Governor, in conjunction with the St. Thomas Water Island Administrator, has organized a major cleanup in the Nada community that began earlier this week.
As you can see in the background, we have abandoned vehicles and debris. Those vehicles were tagged on Friday, and based on the rules and regulations and the law, this Friday, as the task force is leaving Nada, those vehicles are going to be leaving with us. So on behalf of the task force, again, I want to thank you guys for the hard work.
Residents pointed out areas that they believed pose health or safety hazards during the meeting and were encouraged to join the task force when they began a formal assessment of work to be conducted throughout the week.
We kept our promise, we kept our word. We asked that each individual who can come out and join us this morning. We had at least 3 residents of the Nada community with us this morning. We are expecting that as we travel down into the community that more will come out and join us. I was privileged to be in this neighborhood as a child, and I was very surprised to see what this neighborhood has become. We are taking it back, and we want you to take it back with us. Thank you.
This major cleanup initiative focuses on abandoned properties, abandoned vehicles, enforcement of zoning regulations, debris removal, patching of roads, garbage collection, business inspections, fire safety, and much more.
We're also doing pretty much the same thing on the island of St. Croix. We have already started a meeting with the task force, assembling the task force. Administrator Williams will be heading up that task force to do pretty much what's going on here. This is about maybe the 4th, 5th time that I've come out and see this task force actually out working and doing an awesome job. I too would like to say thanks to all the different agencies that take part in this cleanup effort. The task force with the junk and abandoned vehicle, which is headed out at the administrator office. DPNR is out here. Fire department is out here. You also have waste management out here. You have about 5 different agencies that take part, and I really want to say thank you to all of them with this effort that they have ongoing in the different community and different neighborhood.
Now, plans are in the works to target St. John in the near future. For more information, you can contact the Administrator's Office at 340-693-4340. USVI team from the Good Hope Country Day School, they won the St. Croix District 2017 MATHCOUNTS chapter competition on Wednesday, February 15th, after facing off at the University of the Virgin Islands Great Hall with 4 other district school teams. Winners received prizes and advanced to the state MATHCOUNTS finals set for Thursday, March 16 on St. Thomas. 50 students competing represented Ricardo Richards Elementary, Alfredo Andrews Elementary, Church of God, Holiness Academy, John H. Woodson Jr., and Good Hope Country Day School. Late Little Caesars founder Mike Ilitch is being remembered for his philanthropic spirit. Among the recipients of his good deeds is civil rights icon Rosa Parks. Gino Vichy has the story.
A journey of 1,000,000 miles begins with the first step. They took the first step.
Words spoken by a man who became known as the Crusader for Justice during the Civil Rights Movement. Here is Judge Damon Keith pictured with some of his heroes, like Nelson Mandela, John F. Kennedy. It may come as a surprise, those words were meant for the late Mike Ilitch and his surviving wife Marion, for something the couple did that he says he'll never forget, and until recently, he hadn't told anyone.
Well, of course, they don't go around saying that, but I want to at this point, let them know how much the Ilitches not only meant to the city, but they meant so much for Rosa Parks, who was the mother of the Civil Rights Movement.
Back in 1994, Rosa Parks lived here in Detroit. That same year, she was beaten and robbed. At the time, Judge Keith called on the community to raise enough money to get Rosa Parks out of the neighborhood she'd been living in. Keith says 2 guardian angels answered his call.
And Mike and Marion sent in a substantial check. In fact, I just sent a copy of their check back to them 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Judge Keith says Mike and Marion Ilitch paid Rosa Parks rent at the Riverfront Apartments in downtown Detroit from that moment until the day Parks died more than a decade later.
He didn't want to see people suffering.
This is a picture of Judge Keith with a check from Mike and Marion Illich. He stores copies in his office as a reminder that his friends Mike and Marion Illich sacrificed so much for the city they loved and gave so much to those in need.
You'll never discover new oceans unless you have the courage to lose sight of the shore. Mike and Marion had the courage to lose sight of the shore and discover new oceans. They kept pushing Detroit, and it had not been for them, I am saying Detroit would not be in the renaissance that they're in now.
Be sure to stick around. Your News 2 AccuWeather forecast is coming up next.
A look at our current satellite and radar continuing to show another storm pushing into our Atlantic right here. And now, as far as we're concerned, easterly trade winds have been very light. We've seen absolutely beautiful weather. However, our north-facing beaches yesterday, a higher rip current risk because of these swells coming off this storm system. And today it's more so coming to those easterly beaches throughout tonight and into our Friday as well. So really, as far as the weather is concerned, we're pretty quiet. Not too much going on. We do have some scattered showers off and around out towards our east, but other than that, beautiful weather for us here. So sticking with those mainly clear conditions throughout tonight, a low of 72 degrees, very comfortable out there. But if you are going out towards the water this evening, just be wary of that rip current because we are going to see that, especially on the east and north facing beaches. For tomorrow, we're sticking with mostly clear conditions. Our winds are going to be very calm out there, 84 degrees for our high. But once again, the waters, that's where the danger is going to sit. Mostly sunny skies out towards St. Thomas, other than possibly a very light passing shower. We're going to be mostly sunny here across the board. Now, out on the Atlantic side, we do see small craft using caution. Once again, it is not because of these winds. You can see they're pretty light out of the southeast, 5 to 10 knots. Waves also beginning to decrease, but we are seeing some just reach up above 5 feet for a time or so. On the Caribbean side of things are a little bit better out here. We will still see that rip current risk, however. In towards your weekend, looking mostly sunny, and then we'll start to see those trade winds pick back up just a touch, and we'll return to that normal trade wind flow pattern with those brief passing showers. Overall, you are in for some very great weather moving forward over the next 5 days. Back to you, Sandy.
Thank you. Time for our News 2 weather picture by Denisha Lawrence of Ricardo Richards Elementary School, giving us some sunshine and blue skies. Denisha, nice and simple. Now we want to encourage you to send in your weather picture because we are running out. Be sure to send them to the address right there on the screen and include your name, age, school, brief description of your work of art on an 8.5 by 11 white paper, and tune in to see it right here. That's all for now. Thank you for joining us. I'm Sandra Gumansing. Have a wonderful evening.